Hey everybody, this is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous good-looking friends. Hopefully, the majority of you, if you're stumbling upon this video, have seen part 1 of the London Scoop saga. If not, I would highly suggest you go and watch that first, because then it will become clear on some of the things that I'm talking about in this video. Before we get into part 2 of the London Scoop saga, I would like to make a correction from the first video. Apparently, there had been quite a bit of confusion, also confusion on my end, exactly where these London scoops came from and the actual source. So I'd like to explain that so everybody understands how these scoops have come out into the public domain and are floating around. So there is a user by the name of Skippy version 20 on Tumblr right now, and this is the original person who is behind the I Am Still Skippy account. Originally, I had thought that I Am Still Skippy and Skippy is Here to Stay were separate people who got canceled by the Sussex machine. I had the good fortune to chat briefly on Tumblr yesterday to Skippy version 20 and realized that there is so much more to this story still waiting to get out. I highly recommend you go check out this Tumblr blog, as this person, Skippy, has been there literally from the very beginning. I will go ahead and put the link to find this Tumblr blog in my description box. When you have a chance, definitely check it out. Anything that you see by the London Scoop that had been reposted, please note that the originator came from Skippy, and Megan obviously felt quite threatened by it, as this person had been targeted several times and deplatformed as a result of posting these. But we all know that the internet is forever, so when you take down one, 5 more are going to pop up, and these posts are going to continue to live until the truth comes out. Obviously, anything that was said in the first video and this video is, of course, speculation. This London Scoop anonymous person showed up right before the wedding and then shortly after left a few more posts and then a final one in December of 2018, which is the one that we're going to be really focusing on and tying back to all the other things that had been said in the prior posts. And all of these posts were given to Skippy, including the very last one, posted in December. And thanks again to Skippy for allowing me to share this with all of you. It says, I'm not sure how to start this, so I'm going to jump right in. You will have to recall many of the things I've said in the past messages. First, remember how I was able to tell you about the behavior attitudes of H&M, how staff was treated, how staff was handling it? That and other things are now being confirmed, reported in the media. Remember how I said at one point that I wasn't sure if I could handle the information I was getting? I couldn't and tried to stop, but you cannot unknow what you've already learned. I'm going to pause for a second. Yes, I do know that this sounds like riddles, and there are quite a few riddles in the London Scoop post, so you have to really have a firm understanding as to what was going on in that point of time and what you recall from the media. Unfortunately, in the United States, we weren't seeing a lot of the things that were coming out, so a lot of it might not make sense. But part of this video is going to give at least some type of speculation as to what exactly was she talking about. But let me finish this post and then give you my thoughts around what was going on. Remember how I said my source told me I couldn't start with the whole truth because it was too much to be believed? He was right. I get it now. Remember how I didn't understand why I was being given this information? I know now that it is in the hope that I would share it, and I'm not the only one. So that gradually many people would come to know and accept unpleasant truths. I failed in that because I did not want to look deeper. Once I did look deeper, it was too late, too much to put out there. I cannot report these deeper things because of legal issues. I can confirm that so far as the subjects you are focused on, you are mostly correct. I admit, I have not read anything here for months. I know this is vague and not what you're looking for, but my need to warn you has gnawed at me for several weeks. The warning is to prepare yourselves for news you won't want to hear or believe. There is a chance that someone will fall on their sword to prevent naming of names, or that the old ways will protect them. but there is a massive undertaking to expose as many people as possible. Remember the unknown court case I referenced that will set new legal precedent in the US? That is happening soon and is relevant. There is much chaos in the US right now, and it is going to get much, much worse. But it heavily involves the UK and Australia. Other countries as well, but specifically those. You're free to call me a lunatic, a conspiracy theorist, a troll, it doesn't matter. I have proven facts, and I just needed to tell you all to hold on to your faith, whatever it is. It is very hard and scary to let go of long-held personal beliefs about your world. Up is down, left is right, dark is light. You will at a certain point remember that I've given you this message, and you will understand. Now, let's not forget that this was said back in 2018. How many of you remember what 2018 felt like? Honestly, if I didn't go back and Google what it looked like, I don't think I would have been able to come to the conclusion of what this person may have been talking about. When you really think about it, we went through quite a lot of stuff in the last 5 years to even remember what 2018 felt like. I mean, how many times have we said that truth now is actually equating to lies, as well as conspiracy theories actually represent truth? I mean, it really is an upside down clown world that we're living in. Let's jog our memories a little bit as to what was going on in 2018.
There was so much noise around. We had a lot of Brexit, the stories around Trump.
I want to make America great again. We have a last shot.
We had plenty of news.
Now, what I find fascinating is if you look at Harry and Meghan's wedding guest list, there were only 2 major politicians that showed up to this service. As you can see, Sir John Major, who was a former prime minister, and you have Nicholas Soames. It's interesting that Theresa May wasn't invited, even though she was the prime minister at the time, but they invited the one prime minister who was against this whole Brexit situation. This is just some food for thought. Let's not forget that July 2nd, 2016, Meghan posts this about Brexit. No one at that time knew that she was dating Prince Harry, so for her to post this seemed kind of random. When you look back, knowing what we know now about how the media pushes propaganda and what they were doing to the Americans as far as causing division and divisiveness, the portrayal of number 45, as we're coming to discover through our Congress court hearings, they were not accurate. In fact, a lot of lies had been told. And what we're realizing day by day is that this mass manipulation is really a result of those at the top who have been pushing for this one controlled government. Now, I've mentioned this video in the past. I'm not sure how many people took the time to look at it, but this is an ex-UN executive director by the name of Dr. Călin Georgescu. And he gives the 411 and the real deal about what is going on with the UN and how the elites, those that are part of this world economic situation, is trying to control the population globally. And everything that we are seeing now is a result of the plans that they have been putting in place. This is not some type of conspiracy theory. This is really going on. What we saw in the United States back in 2018 when number 45 was in office was all this chaos created because the global elites, their plans were messed up. Here's what he had to say about number 45 getting into office.
So for this reason, sorry to interrupt you, the situation with Donald Trump was a big shock.
They didn't expect that to happen. That was an accident, I suppose.
Absolutely an accident.
Not part of their game plan.
It was the first time of the oligarchy system was happened an accident. Because normally it have to be Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
Not Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And the process which we are dealing now with this pandemic and all these liars was supposed to be in 2016.
They were pushed into
exactly
early
in a sense to be in 2020 to be a disaster regarding food and water,
Ah, I see.
which normally they want to arrive in 2025 now.
I see.
So the plan was a little bit changed, and for this reason, of course they will not succeed. This is clear. I mean, the system is almost down. It's but of course there are the last moments, and we have to have the courage now, all of us, to say no.
So when we look at Meghan, she is a very, very small part in this whole globalist initiative. I believe, and this is my opinion, that Meghan was put in there as a honeypot. And her only purpose was to just prove to the family that people could break into their inner circle. I do believe that she wasn't aware of the full extent of what she was being used for. I think Marcus is the one who is solely responsible for facilitating and getting this all together, giving Meghan the impression that, yeah, she's going to be this powerhouse if she does X, Y, and Z. At the same time, he's talking to people, very powerful people, who are telling him exactly what they want to see. Let's not forget what his primary job role is. He's there to please people, his clients. Could it be people backing the Soho House? I don't think it's Ron Burkle or Nick Jones, but there's also other investors, high net worth investors of that club that possibly wanted to achieve something, which everything, like what London Scoop says, is connected. The way that I see it, Meghan was hired for a job, and her job was to show up and be in the face of this family. And I think that that's where it ends. Let us all not forget, though, at that time, a storm was brewing surrounding this guy here. For as long as this monarchy has been around, there has always been people who want to see it come down. With all that has been going on with the power struggle between dominant superpowers like the United States, China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, it could be anybody's guess as to who would like to see the monarchy toppled and be able to take some of that wealth coming from the Commonwealth and those trade agreements. And this power grab is by a very small group of people who have the wealth and resources to pretty much do what they want. And this is where you see the UN come into play in being that sort of bridge for these wealthy elite people to push and drive policy in an organization that is not regulated by anyone, but used as the global conduit, let's say.
Ultimately, when you're saying we have to say no, you're saying you have to say no to the UN because they are really the oligarchs. And when they're talking about peace, they're talking about war because they're interested in war because that's a good way to make money. When they talk about wealth and economic liberty for everyone, they're talking about poverty because keeping people in poverty makes them money.
You control.
Yeah,
You control them totally.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to understand why there was so much discourse when Brexit happened, because it was a direct threat to globalization, which is what these elites ultimately want. And sadly, it always comes down to money. And at the time of Brexit, you had a whole bunch of trade deals that were in jeopardy. And one of those trade deals was the arms trade. It's big business for the UK, especially in Saudi Arabia. And who is the one who deepens those relationships in Saudi Arabia or has deepened those relationships with Saudi Arabia? The royal family. Remember how everyone was getting on Meghan's case for wearing these blood diamonds? This was back in October of 2018, the same month that Jamal Khashoggi was dismembered in Turkey. Was Meghan Markle used as a distraction in order to deflect away from the royal family's relationship with Saudi Arabia and other Arab countries in the Gulf? As we all know, that Sleazy E had quite a bit of business affairs with the Middle East in the arms trade. Some say it's kind of sketchy, and I'll leave it at that. But Prince Andrew had been a big advocate as trade envoy, and even though he was supposed to have stepped down back in 2011, he continued to help with his soft power literally for the next 8 years. In fact, in 2018, soon after the murder of Khashoggi, Prince Andrew had been advocating for Saudi Arabia. As you can see here, it wasn't taken too well, but there wasn't much press coverage around it, considering that Meghan Markle, wearing those blood diamond earrings, took the front page. According to the Evening Standard, Camilla accepted a private gift of $1 million in a ruby necklace from the Saudis. So I can't understand how this is different than what Meghan did. According to the UN, Saudi Arabia has one of the most oppressive regimes for women. So I'm not sure I'm following why we're getting so down on Meghan for wearing the earrings when you have other royals who have been supporting and under the table deals for money. Cash for honors with Charles, and then you have Prince Andrew and his business dealings as trade envoy. Obviously, human rights violations is not going to stop the UK from trading arms. In fact, in 2018, it was recorded that the country won defense orders worth £14 billion, up from £9 billion in 2017 and the highest since 1983. Let me know if there's interest in hearing more about the royals and their relationships with these oppressive regimes. If there's a significant amount of interest, I can put together a video for the future. There are quite a few people that Meghan appears to be connected to that would gladly like to have that kind of trade business. There is also another type of trading that is big business that involves underage people. And it's not a secret that Prince Andrew was caught up in that whole fiasco. So is Prince Andrew the one that fell on his sword, as stated by London Scoop? Possibly, perhaps to prevent more things coming out. In my opinion, I don't think exposing Andrew and everybody else who is supposed to be connected to that really is going to be saving those underage people. I think it's more of crippling the power scheme and getting these big institutions to collapse and using tactics that would damage the brand, which would be something like what Sleazy was doing with those underage people. We have a legitimate problem that none of these globalists even care to address or talk about.
The problem is that these oligarchs, all of them, are related with the system of the pedophilia one. Because we know that there are more than 8 million children per year which they disappear. 8 million does mean the entire population of Austria. Mm-hmm. They disappear without any information, simply like that. And this is the transhumanism. Mm-hmm. So this criminal act is have to be stopped. And we stop in the moment when the people arrive in the consciousness and the people they arrive to understand that this is not their life. Otherwise, we are not in the line anymore with what to receive from the nature.
As keeping people in poverty makes them money.
You control.
Yeah,
you control them totally. Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to what London Scoop said. To paraphrase, if anyone publicized the truth of this, everyone would scoff and the truth would disappear forever. Think of that analogy about eating an elephant, one bite at a time. If you go back to 2018, before anybody realized how the media has been lying and manipulating the public, you absolutely would think that all of this is like crazy talk. What? There's a small group of people that get together in Switzerland and they talk about how they can get everybody under this one ruling, and we will tell them what we think will be for a better society while we line our pockets? Oh my gosh, no, we would think that that's crazy, that they're be people evil enough to want to enslave those that are beneath them and market it under the guise of saving the planet and for the future. But it's happening. And when we see them looking at human beings like cattle in this whole PDF files and everything that's being exposed from the sleazy saga, you start to realize not everything is what it seems. And many of us look at Meghan Markle and say, oh, she's got, this up her sleeve and she plans on doing this. I don't think this woman really did have the brains to orchestrate all this after, thinking this through and hearing what other people have to say. Yeah, she has a lot of advisors around her, but You can bet that some of those advisors, like people at Sunshine Sachs and Sarah Latham, also, I'm sure, have some type of loyalty and allegiance to a certain political person. Let's all not forget that Sarah Latham lied for Meghan while she was working for her, and also her name has popped up in Sleazy's Little Black Book. You almost have to wonder, why did the Queen hire Sarah Latham when Meghan and Harry left the UK? Anybody have any ideas? I mean, obviously, her connections to Sleazy E should have been alone something that the Queen should have said, "Nuh-uh, we're going to stay away from you," knowing what was going on. Or do you think that she kept Sarah Latham close because she knew things? I would have to agree with London Scoop. I think Meghan was left to her own devices after she made it to the winner's circle. And that involved bringing back the people that she'd worked with when she was in Hollywood, involving her lawyer, her business manager, and then bringing on Sunshine Sachs. I remember that Barkjack had posted way back in 2022 about what a nightmare this woman was when dealing with Netflix, Spotify, and her PR teams. Here's what she had to say back then. The blog says, Megxit was planned. Okay. Rogue publicity and stardom was most definitely planned, but that's exactly what got them canned. Markle had been cooking up her own drama that the palace had forewarned her about, culminating in letter to dad. She was warned not to enact her Gasconade plan about having 5 pre-approved sources with the pre-approved messages go talk to the Sussex-friendly outlet, People magazine. When Meg went and released the hounds anyway, chaos ensued. Our palace insiders say she was relentlessly counseled on publicity and communications to no avail. She did what she wanted anyway. She was advised of press protocols with respect to members of the royal family and ignored much of it. She was regularly admonished about attitude and respect, or lack of it. She continued fostering media relations with outlets like People and attempted to shake Disney and Apple's tree while still working as a royal. Many of her motives and actions were openly questioned, and this is how we have this information. We exclusively told our Twitter followers about pitches they already had lined up in January 2020 for Netflix, Spotify, Apple, Hulu, and other media giants. It's easy for people to say they have a palace source, but keep in mind, for over 9 years operating as the handle, we have never wavered. We regularly tell you the truth months in advance, and multiple times we were vindicated and proven right. There's no need to force anyone to believe us. Things we tell our followers reveal themselves in due time. And here's the evidence that Barkjack called it way back in January. The tweet's there from 1/9. What's interesting is what Barkjack wrote about Oprah. And they write, Oprah is not a true friend of the Sussex duo. She's an opportunist. We got a hold of some emails. Oprah and a few in her closest circle fully expect the interview to go down like a lead balloon for the Megxit pair while catapulting her own publicity. Meghan didn't even let that ink dry on that marriage certificate in discussing business at her own wedding reception with Oprah. According to Barkjack, they said that H&M promised Oprah something for her birthday, which was January, as far back as the wedding. The Oprah interview was making good on that promise. Think about that, and remember, we told you basically Oprah had them by the balls. As many of you know, the timing of their interview was despicable, despite full well knowing for several weeks His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, was considered actively dying, his body shutting down, refusing food and drink. The pair soldiered on with their famed tell-all to Big O. To many in the family, this act was considered callous, cunning, and unforgivable. The pair had also been working on documentaries as far back as fall 2019. We broke the news of Megxit December 2019, saying the pair were set to take an indefinite hiatus. We knew they were pitching major production houses in January 2020, and some existing material was cited as an example of what they plan to produce. Our keen followers have always known the details before the news hits traditional media. Thank you for standing by us. And yes, that is true. Barkjack had been bringing the tea consistently. They actually broke the baby news before anybody knew. So, I give some credit there. Now, going back to what London Scoop said, All of the side players in this game are just shallow bonuses who are willing to go along for the fame. They haven't a clue. And I happen to agree with that. I think it was exactly that, bringing somebody from the outside and penetrating within the inner circle, showing that it really isn't all that protected. I would have to agree. I don't think many people thought in the beginning that Meghan would make it to the altar. But knowing the backstory, you bet she clung to that and used whatever she needed to use, such as like the race card, to get that ring on her finger and that marriage certificate signed. I don't think that in her bones she really was in love or is in love with Harry. I think she was in love with the idea of marrying into the family and becoming royalty, but it had nothing to do with being soulmates with Harry. And I don't think that Harry either saw her as a soulmate. So I think all of this was orchestrated from various different levels. And as you see how this is collapsing in front of our eyes, exactly what everybody has been talking about the last 6 years as to her poor behavior. All she is looking to do is climb that greasy pole. And she did it. And now she's sliding right back down, which I don't see her as a huge threat. She is a menace to society for sure, but I don't see her as a huge threat to the level that, I had once thought as far as her machinations from behind the scenes. She's not that smart, guys. It's the people that have been around her who have their own agendas had either been swaying her along the ideas of her becoming this political figure or, boosting up her ego to make her believe that she is the reason why, this whole setup has been shook, right? Quite frankly, she's just a little stupid puppet. It's really Harry who has the influence. Without Harry, she is nothing. There's one thing that's definite for sure. There is still an active campaign to get Prince Andrew. So I don't know if you guys have seen this, but in the US, our media has been talking about this explosive new documentary. It's surprising that Sky News and Fox were also talking about it.
Secrets of Prince Andrew begins now.
So here's what I want to know. Why are we talking about this now when this documentary was released originally in May of 2023? It literally was released right before the coronation on May 1st. Channel 4 also announced that they were airing this documentary as an alternate schedule if you didn't want to watch the coronation, which I thought was pretty indicative of how they feel about the monarchy. What's even more interesting, the CCDH, or the Center for Countering Digital Hate, the one that put Robert F. Kennedy Jr. on their blacklist and is a part of the censorship industrial complex, and let's not forget, working with Harry and Meghan and have been causing trouble, was actually one of the sponsors in the United States for a commercial. So all throughout this Prince Andrew takedown on A&E here in the United States, the CCDH was flashing their commercials throughout. This is a UK company forcing their propaganda on censorship in the United States. Now, I agree with Elon Musk. Yes, that is true. He is suing the CCDH, and I hope Elon bankrupts this company. I mean, look at the audacity for them to put up this message about Elon Musk suing them by saying it's a move straight out of the authoritarian handbook to try and silence us and our work. Well, isn't that what they have been doing to not only the people in the UK, but also the people in the United States with the work that they have been doing with Harry and the censorship industrial complex? I think they need to sit down for a bit and think about what they're saying. And we have to wake up and push back against this stuff. I'll leave you on this final note with final thoughts from Dr. Călin. But before I go, thank you for taking the time to watch this two-parter. Hope it was valuable. And if you don't mind, please go ahead and hit that like button so this could reach more people. And on that note, everyone, I will be back with more content. But until then, please be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
So we have to say no. The humanity, and this is my message, the people, they have to say no. they have to use this word, which is just very simple. No.
Yeah.
Say no.
No, I do not consent. That's the point.
It was such a fraud.